Welcome to another episode of the NBA Empire Show. I'm your host, Landon King, and today I'm just going to be talking about my thoughts on the first round of this 2021 NBA playoffs. I'm going to be giving a general overview about what I think is the impact, and also just what I got from it in an entertainment standpoint. I'm going to go 1-8 all the way down to 4-5, and I'm going to do it by conference. So first up is the Eastern Conference. Now, the 1-8 matchup in the East was Philly and Washington, and no matter how hard I tried, I could not watch more than 20 minutes of a game. And the one time I did, it felt like it was going on for like 5 hours. The games were just so boring. I think that should just be a given with the 1-8 matchup. I feel like a reward for the 1 seed to be able to have an easy route to the second round. But it was just so boring watching these two teams battle for what seemed like forever. Obviously, Philly won. The one game that the Wizards did win, Embiid was out, so I didn't really count that against them. That's my thoughts on the 1-8 matchup in the East. Now, the Nets and the Celtics. This one is also kind of a reward for the Nets for getting the second seed, but it didn't really feel like that because they were going against Boston, and Boston has consistently been able to make a deep playoff run. You know, they've never really been out of the playoffs or on the fringe of being out of the playoffs like they were this year. The Nets were not losing in the first round, and, you know, it was really fun sitting down, I believe it was game 4 or 3, and watching Jason Tatum drop 50 in TD Garden. That was... Is it TD? Yeah, no. In Boston, that was really fun to watch, and I feel like the rest of the series had a lot of entertaining moments throughout. You know, I always like watching the Celtics play. They have a grittiness about them. I like watching Marcus Smart play, even though he's so inefficient, and yeah. Overall, I liked this series. I didn't really love it, you know. We kind of knew the outcome going into it. That's my thoughts on the 2-7 seed. The 3-6 matchup, I was so excited for. I wanted the rematch between the Bucks and the Heat, and I was so happy we got it in the first round because it was guaranteed. You know, I wanted to see how the Bucks would respond to being kicked out of the playoffs last year by the Heat, and the Bucks came out and just obliterated the Heat. I mean, 4-game sweep. I think it was the only sweep in the first round, and it was just totally unexpected. I could not believe my eyes when I would check the score for games 2, 3, and 4, and the Heat were constantly down by 20. That was something that I didn't think could happen. You know, I thought Bam would really match up well with Giannis. I thought Jimmy would lock up Chris Middleton. I thought it would be a really interesting battle. I thought this series was going to go to 7 games, and it didn't. Miami just did not look the same as they were in the bubble. Maybe it had something to do with the bubble. I don't really like that theory. Overall entertainment, I did not like it. You know, I don't think anybody really likes watching a team getting blown out of the water in the playoffs when you expected it to be a super close battle all throughout. Those are my thoughts on the series. Now, the 4-5. Now, just like the last one, I expected the Hawks and the Knicks to go to 7 games. I had no idea who would come out on top. You know, you have the offense of the Hawks with John Collins and obviously Trae Young going up against the amazing defensive scheme of the Knicks, and I thought this would be one of the more entertaining ones to watch, and then I barely watched any of it. You know, I was either always busy or it was always Knicks are down by 20, Knicks are down by 19, so I didn't really check into the games. So I can't really say anything on it. I loved Trae Young, you know, being a menace. That was really fun to watch. I feel like that was something we were missing in the NBA. Somebody getting hate that they kind of deserve, but also they don't deserve. I love Trae Young stepping up into the villain role. I think it's going to be really fun to watch this rivalry between the Hawks and the Knicks play out for years to come. Yeah, those are my thoughts on the Eastern Conference side of things. Now, the Grizzlies and the Jazz. Now, this one, I expected to be a lot more fun than the Sixers and the Wizards, which it was. I loved watching Donovan Mitchell and John Morant go off, but I also watched barely any of the games, and that's partially because they were on so late. Watching the highlights, I wish I did. It was the outcome we were expecting. We didn't expect, at least most people didn't expect, the Grizzlies to pull off a massive upset against the Jazz. I don't know why people still think that the Jazz are pretenders. The Jazz are obviously contenders for the title. Yeah. Now the 2 and 7, this is the big one for me. The Suns and the Lakers. Now this series was really fun to watch. This is one of the ones that I stayed up really late to watch, even though it's in the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast. Watching Jay Crowder and LeBron go back and forth, and then LeBron toying with Jay Crowder at the end of Game 3, and then watching Jay Crowder salsa at the end of Game 6 was really fun to watch. Watching Devin Booker step up in, I would say, the absence of Chris Paul, even though he played every game, but he obviously wasn't himself, which leads me to my next point, which is the injuries. This series would have been so much more fun to watch if there wasn't injuries. Nagging injuries really bit this series in terms of entertainment for me. Obviously, Chris Paul goes down in Game 1. He's not the same player throughout the entire series, and obviously he's better now, but yeah, that really hurt the Suns, but obviously not too much because they came out of the series. And this is where the Lakers use their excuse of injuries. You know, you had AD go down in Game 5 with the groin sprain. Was it a groin strain? Then you have LeBron not anywhere near 100%, and without those two guys, you're really going to have to depend on the others, and the others did not show up at all. I would get so mad whenever Kuzma would fake the shot, drive in, do a stupid floater that would end up in the hands of DeAndre Ayton. When KCP was in the corner, brick. Wesley Matthews did nothing but cardio. Alex Caruso went down with an injury, but before that, could do nothing. Dennis Schroeder was really inconsistent. Andre Drummond had one of the better series amongst the Lakers, but that's not saying much. At the end of the day, the Suns were a really good team. The Suns are a really good team, and the Lakers were not healthy at all.
Our guys yesterday that we're not going to let anything take our focus off this game. I have a great deal of respect for the Lakers, and I know Chris wouldn't do.
Now the 3 and the 6. The Nuggets and the Blazers. This was one of the ones that I was highly invested in because I love the Nuggets and I love the Blazers. I love Damian Lillard and everything that he stands for, even though that seems like it might be on the rocks now. I love the story of Jokic, and he went from having a Taco Bell commercial being aired when he was getting drafted to being the MVP of the league. That's amazing. This series was really fun to watch. Watching those two guys go back and forth, you know, even though they don't match up directly, you know, one's a point guard and one's a center, but seeing those two guys answer back and seeing Damian Lillard out there with no help was so sad, so demoralizing to me. I want Damian Lillard to succeed. I want him to succeed after everything that he said. You know, he hates super teams. He hates the idea of joining another star. He wants to stay loyal to the soil and win one in Portland. I hated when the Blazers only made one shot in overtime, while Damian Lillard was out there putting them in overtime twice, and they couldn't even return the favor with a simple dunk. And then that last game, and then Game 6, the Blazers are up double digits with only a few minutes to go, and then it whittles away. As the Blazers once again disappear, Damian Lillard wasn't even hitting shots, which was pretty crazy. You know, when there was 4 minutes left, he shot and missed it. I called the game. That was it. Because if Damian Lillard isn't hitting shots, then nobody is. And then the 4 and the 5, the Clippers and the Mavs. This one I loved. I loved seeing the Clippers getting hated on for intentionally choosing this matchup, tanking their way to the Mavericks, and then almost getting eliminated, losing the home court advantage, going down 3-2, and then obviously Kawhi stepped it up big time, because if he didn't, Luka would have owned that franchise. And now that we're on the topic of Luka, get this man some help, please. I hated seeing him put up 40, 7 and 10, and then not even being able to close out the series because Kristaps Porzingis, Willie Cauley-Stein, Boban, Tim Hardaway Jr., Finney Smith aren't making shots. They just could not do that for the life of them. And then Kristaps Porzingis got me so mad. I don't ever want to see him play again. He's 7'3" with Rajon Rondo on him, and he refuses to post up. He does not post up at all. And I get it. That's not his game. The Mavericks say that's not his game. But it doesn't have to be your game. If you have a guy that's a whole foot shorter than you, you post up no matter what. And Kristaps Porzingis, no, I'm just going to do a little fadeaway, brick it, and then boom, Kawhi gets a running dunk on Kleba. All in all, I love the series. I love seeing all the Clippers slander just because it's really fun to see how quick people shift on that. And yeah, those are my thoughts on the first round. this was really fun. You know, the first round was just a really fun experience all in all. Being able to sit down at 3:30 in the afternoon and watch basketball all the way to like 1 in the morning was incredible. And I'm sure the people that live with me would say otherwise, but that's a different story. Players play at the top of their game. I love seeing teams finally figure it out, like the Nets, and I love seeing playoff basketball with full crowds. Oh my gosh, I love seeing the full crowds. Full crowds came back just in time for the playoffs, I'd say. I did not mean to offend your favorite team at all. These are just my opinions. If you have a different one, or you just want to talk about your thoughts, leave it in the comments, like and subscribe. This has been the NBA Empire Show.